Because in the code for the state, it says expansive soils. Pretty much all of Erie County has expansive soils. But the other safe side, the Brianna. That's
This concerns the property on First Street?
Yep. So she ran a
Part
whole
of the scare of
thing, and then she
Federal
laid this out here in an
funds.
affidavit for us, because she could
Oh,
not.
I don't look at any news today.
I'll stop it. But it affects my job.
Yeah.
Back when we were able to draw down some money. Baby employees in town.
Oh, good grief.
Food banks, all the food banks lost
You need me to sign this.
second harvest. They can't get anything out.
Tell you this, we don't pay nothing.
Dana. You ready? We'll now bring the meeting to order.
We'll start off with roll call. Madam Chairperson Gamblin,
Present.
Ms. Warner,
Here,
Ms. Johnson will not be here tonight. Mr. Sharad,
Here.
Ms. Mazunga.
Here.
Because this is an adjudication hearing that is based on facts and not public opinion, therefore, everyone that's going to testify must be sworn in. So if you wish to testify, if I can get you to raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you are all sworn in.
oh,
Thank you. Okay, so next is the approval of the previous minutes for October 29th. So did everyone get that in their package?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
No opposed? Okay.
Then, as far as the funding update from Community Development, Debbie Eversole, at this time, we do not have a dollar amount, but I'm sure for the next meeting that we will be able to give you an update.
Okay. And then old business?
We are still working on the summarization of repairs, and we're still waiting for board members to come up with a formatting for what exactly it is that you all want, and also something that we can be able to be amenable with the code compliance officers
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
So some of us have submitted comments previously. I take it you still have those?
I still have the comments that were submitted.
Okay.
So can, for the next board meeting, can I just ask, can we get a summarization of what you currently have? Because truthfully, I would not remember what you had.
So what I'll do is take the emails that I received, I'll push those back out to all the board members.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, new business.
We have case number EN 24-0516, Deborah Kopensparker, through her attorney, Mr. Kaufman, is appealing a notice and order of violation for 1101 First Street, Sandusky, Ohio, parcel number 57-02-537.000.
Good evening, Ron Snyder, Code Compliance Inspector for the City of Sandusky. So, as mentioned, the property in question is 1101 First Street. So on March 5th of 2024, while in that area, conducting follow-up and inspections on other properties, that property was noted to have a number of environmental housing concerns. To be specific, foundation concerns, gutter installation, downspout installation, exterior surface maintenance. So the foundation that was visible from public access would have been off of Ogon Street and then off of First Street. So that's a photo there. And it was primarily missing grout, or a lot of the, like a facade that was over top of the masonry block had been chipped away, started to erode. This would be the area off of First Street. There was concerns in regards to gutter installation. So the photos that are there would have also been in your packet. So you have 3 different roofs there on Ogon Street that are connected all to one building. So 2 of the roofs that directly have a pitched roof behind that, which would cause for water flow to come out through there, do not have any gutters or spouts, any roof drainage. There is a, as indicated, there is a 3 different roofs there on Ogon Street that are connected all to one building.
I'm
So 2 of the
sorry.
roofs.
I'm sorry.
It's just showing an alcove here that would be affected by that water flow, but you'll see right above, there's an arrow there indicating toward the siding and exterior maintenance. There is a gutter that was already pre-existing on the residence prior to me writing the violations. There's a downspout right there next to the gas meter. But we do have, again, there was some flaking. The paint was in a position or a condition to where it needed to be addressed. We had some dry rotting or rotting wood there, deterioration on the left photo. The right photo, you can see the flaking paint. Again, some of the issues there with the paint. A little bit of the chipping of the foundation on the left photo. Again, the right photo is showing peeling paint. Fascia boards. Again, fascia boards that needed painted. That would be the right photo would be the fascia board that's currently behind the gutter off of Ogon Street. That still has not been painted as well. Again, with the exterior surface maintenance fascia boards, the one to the photo to the left in the PowerPoint would be to the north side. And the second photo there is off of that east side. A couple more photos. Again, paint concerns, front door, siding, window trim. So on March 6th, I sent the order of violations letter. Certified mail and certificate of mail was received. April 30th, a couple days later, correspondence was received from Mr. Kaufman. Said the correspondence indicated that the property owner was wishing to appeal the write-up. Same was never delivered to the code office until after the May inspection, meaning it was sent, it was here, it just never made its way to our office. All right. The same was never delivered again, so the appeal was initially denied, basically because once we did, it was located and came to our office, it was outside of that time frame. So that was a decision made by Mr. Rucker that we're outside of the time period to allow for the appeal. So I continued on with what I was doing as far as follow-ups. On May 22nd of 2024, I had been out and about. I noticed there was 2 or 3 young gentlemen, I believe 2, and they were progressively working on the structure. So if you notice the left photo is that north side, which was all repainted, and then the bottom, the right photo is going to be the front portion or the section more toward First Street, and it's that bluer color, so that had been done. What I did note, though, is that we did not have any gutters on that back roof or on either one of those roofs. So an additional inspection was conducted with no change noted on July 1st. July 29th, correspondence received from Mr. Kaufman again, indicating the request for an appeal. An appeal was granted. Subsequently, no penalties were administered to this property. However, due to September's meeting being canceled, the said appeal was reset for tonight's meeting, which at that time was supposed to be October 29th. January 28th, 2025, we have photos here of what was taken today. We still have the two roofs there off of Ogant Street that are without gutter or downspout. Still have the pre-existing gutter and downspout above the gas meter. And we have two inclined or pitched roofs on the east side that still do not have any gutters or downspouts. So when we initially had gotten the letters from Mr. Kaufman, he had indicated that the residence or the structure would have not required gutters and spouts, and I'll let him explain that further there. So when he had indicated this, since we had an attorney's office involved, I set correspondence up to our city's attorney, and his first question was, is the area in question a matter of expansive soils? So in the state code for roof drainage, it specifically identifies that it's required for expansive soils. Well, I'm not any type of geologist or anything of that nature, nor is anyone here, so I reached out to Miss Brianne Holman from the Erie County Conservation District. And we had a conversation. She proceeded to explain to me that Erie County is broken down into a number of different soil types, and she identified a number of them, which was good. I informed our attorney of that. What we've came to is that Ms. Holman, you'll have with you, there is a soil report of Erie County, Ohio, which would include the city of Sandusky. There's a lot of reading in there. So what Stu did was he had contacted her, Ms. Brianna Holman. She was not able to attend this evening, but there is an affidavit there, sworn affidavit, to what her findings are concerning the property at 1101 First Street. If you would like, I can read that to you, or I'll let the board go ahead and read on their own. So this would be the two-page affidavit here.
And what type of soil is this supposed to be? You say expansive?
Expansive soils,
Okay.
meaning how much, it would boil down to how much does the soils expand and contract under certain amounts of moisture, water, things of this nature. When it expands, is it going to, how far does it increase? How far does it expand or contract? And that's broken down into the two-page report here. So.
Dana, through the chair, I have a question on paragraph 4 and 5. Paragraph 5, our office recommends that buildings be constructed with roof drainage directed away from the structure either through overland flow or subsurface methods. However, in this instance, the property does not appear to have adequate space for overland drainage without the potentially impacting the neighboring property. Additionally, a subsurface drainage connection could raise concerns if it connects to a combined sewer overflow system. What is the analysis of that statement in paragraph 5?
I would disagree with her at one point. If we have a pre-existing gutter on the Ogant Street side, it's already running water across the sidewalk.
So you disagree with Ms. Holman on that?
Right, because she never went to the site. There's an alcove on the back side of this, right here, the photo, the right photo, you can see where the structure is set back in from the fence line.
Can you tell me alcove? What is I know, can you just tell me what the alcove?
Alcove, which means a setback. So you see the fence there. That fence is not directly in line with the back of that building. From the back of that fence to the back of that building, right, there's...
How many feet?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. We can't access that property without a search warrant or permission by owner to do so. There would be area back there for that gutter and runoff.
Did you raise these concerns with Ms. Holman when you spoke with her?
She was only consulted for the soil samples.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this paragraph 5 is not relevant for,
Without her being here to actually say so, I just would indicate I disagree with what she wrote there. If she didn't go out and make an assessment at the property, from what that reads to me is that she's claiming that there was no way to put any roof drainage to alleviate the water from being pushed over and onto someone else's property, which you can't do. If we would have solely had that issue here, the gutters and spouts would have never been an issue, right? It's prohibited. You can't run your drainage so that your roof drainage comes down a downspout and pushes over onto an adjoining
right.
property.
Yeah, no,
Right,
I understand that. My parents had the problem where somebody directed their gutters right under their soil. So my question is just, is there, that's what your interpretation is, that spot there could be used
That
for-
area to the back, okay. A lot of it would have to be too, depending upon what Mr. Kaufman has to bring to the table today, would determine
Okay.
where the property line would be there, where the fence is. Is this structure built directly upon the property lines between that property and the property to the east side? If a certain portion of that property, up to basically right around where those trees are, if the structure is built on the property line, I could understand maybe that roof right there, that first sloped roof on the left photo, yes, I could agree with the idea that nothing could be there because it would be pushing that water onto that east property.
And-
However, the photo up to the top there, right, we have distance between the structure and that fence line to where that water could be routed.
And the concern is the foundation, correct?
Foundation, when we write something foundation-wise versus the building department, our foundation by code would be more so for weather-tight, watertight, and rodent-proof, meaning we want to try to be more proactive. Long-term foundation, that's going to be a building department concern if it's starting to affect the actual structure within itself. We don't get into that detail unless it's very obvious to us. So.
Just so I understand, you're saying, so if the gutter was directed to that, what you're calling an alcove, if the water was
It's a setback.
setback,
It's a
if
setback,
the
yeah.
water was directed to that setback, your understanding is that the water would not enter the foundation
Depending upon what your distance is between,
and the slope?
right, the slope,
Okay.
right? You're only required to offset that water flow by 5 feet or more. So depending upon what that setback is on that east side would determine that. Again, without a search warrant, we can't go in and onto that property, so.
That's something you want to say?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, only that I would agree that the Assistant Director's comment about whether or not a gutter can be installed, she's not a gutter installer, or whether it can be hooked up to our sewer system. Again, she has no expertise in that area. The important part is that she has described the soils, and by the way, the report that we're given is not just about Erie County, it's about this specific property. She prepared a soil report for this specific parcel and indicated that it was expansive, although sometimes she describes it as shrink swell, because that's what expansive soils do. They expand and they shrink. And the only, I guess I'd make a couple of legal points. Mr. Kaufman has made the point that there's no requirement that gutters be installed. We disagree with that. In fact, our code says that gutters must be maintained. Now, he says he wants to add a word to our code. He wants to add the word if. If gutters are installed, they must be maintained. That word if is not in our code. Our code says that they have to be maintained and kept under repair. Our code also incorporates the Ohio Building Code and the Ohio Plumbing Code in 1353.02 and 1321.01. And it's the Ohio Plumbing Code that requires gutters and downspouts on buildings built on expansive soils.
Mr. Hastings? Through the chair, is it okay if I ask Mr. Hastings a question? Okay. That part of our code about the gutters, is that primarily for the foundations of the structures?
Oh, yeah, that's what gutters and downspouts.
Okay, so in an instance where the installation of a gutter is adversely affecting the foundation. Is that still up to code? Like if you have a gutter that's directing water into a spot that would then direct that water into the foundation, would that be a code violation?
Yeah, that very well, I would leave that up to the
So if
expertise
you
of our
have-
code people, but.
If you have an area of soil that you direct water to, and that water then flows into the foundation, that would still not mitigate the problem that the code seeks to address?
Well, I mean, soils and slopes around buildings are controlled by either the people that build them.
If you
or the
have room
people
for,
that
if you have
control
room for a proper slope, right?
It's just a matter of moving dirt.
If I may,
Okay.
the building code indicates that water and roof drainage has to be pushed away from any wall or foundation, a minimum of 5 feet, to allow for the soils to accept
So if you have
the water
5 feet,
overflow.
if you have 5 feet there, then you're saying that's sufficient? If you have 5 feet before it reaches the other property line?
If it would be, if that's in fact 5 feet.
Okay.
If not, then I guess exceptions would have to be looked at. So as far as
But we
what-
don't know anything about that yet?
I don't, that setback would be whichever the footage would be. So, again,
No, you
So-
answered the question before I could ask it, so,
Okay.
yeah. So we do not know the distance between the fence and the building, correct?
No.
He says you can't get the distance without a search warrant.
I would have to have a search warrant permission from owner, right? But if that is in fact on the property line, then the owner of this property could not give me permission to go back there anyhow, because I would have to go on the adjoining property in order to find that out. So it really depends on where the pins are for that structure to determine where the property lines do they. But this structure here is an old structure.
Yeah.
And more than likely, the codes back then did not require setbacks off of those pins in order to build that property or to build that structure. So in retrospect, there's a portion of the building that could be directly on that property line. I just know that if you look at that fence line, there is a setback there. Determining the amount of footage of setback cannot be determined from public access. So,
And we couldn't get this information off of plot plans, existing
Pardon me?
plans? Plot plans?
We just-
Property lines? The city has
We would-
documents that show
Usually what
properties and
we-
setbacks and so on, do they not?
that's a possibility that the building code was, provided that we still have those by the age of the building.
And the other question I've got for you, if you could answer, this whole discussion for the last few minutes has been dealing just with the back, not with the gutters that are not there on Ogot Street, correct? We've been talking about just this lens section here.
Sure.
We haven't addressed the lack of gutters in Ogats, correct?
There's no question about there should be there as well. We already had pre-existing gutters on that side of the structure. And the two roofs that have drainage from a sloped roof. Now, if you look at them from different angles, they'll look flat from there. They look as if they're flat, but what we have just beyond them to the east side is a pitched roof that's going to, any water flowing down that pitched roof is going to push it to the flat roof, and then it's going where? It's going out onto the sidewalk.
And you said we did have, the property at one point did have gutters at one.
It has a pre-existing gutter in the same general area, so if you look up at the top photo, right where the gas meter is, right above that is a gutter. And then there is a downspout that comes down, and they painted that basically the same color as the siding.
Okay.
So,
In the area there to the left, the brick, with the brick fascia and the windows, has gutter or doesn't have gutter?
does not have.
Does not have gutter. The area to the right of the satellite dish,
I'm sorry, to the right of what?
the satellite dish there above the gas meter? Upper right-hand corner.
That is, no. Okay, so that is going to be, if you notice the left photo, right, that's going to be like, I guess they refer to it as like a parapet wall.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I see it now.
All right, so in behind that, there's no, and there is just a slight, but that would push down onto the roof that does have the pre-existing gutter on it, so,
So that roof area then drains into this area that has the gutter.
right. But that's the only roof drainage that we have on that entire structure.
Through the chair, I have another question, just one more.
Okay.
Have we found out why the gutters were removed that existed and at what date they were removed?
No gutters were ever removed, ma'am.
Oh.
So we just only had the one pre-existing gutter?
That's correct. At least not since 1976, ma'am.
So how many gutters would it take to solve this issue?
I'm sorry?
I said, how many gutters would this take to solve this issue?
Well, we'd need one there on the two roofs on the Ogon Street side and then two on the back side on the east. Again, provided they're not, the ones on the east side are the ones that are concerning. I understand Mr. Kaufman's plight, right? If we don't have proper ways of flowing that water out, then I could understand why we don't look at doing that. Mr. Kaufman we had spoken once earlier, and, according to our code, the building official is the only one that can basically say, okay, there's no need for gutters here or anything else. Now, I don't know, sir, did you ever make contact with Mr. Tom on that issue? No, okay. So,
So, Mr. Kaufman, do you have anything you would like to say?
I do, ma'am, thank you. First of all, good afternoon. Was Mr. Schneider done? I'm sorry. I
Oh,
didn't do that.
Mr. Snyder is done. No, I was asking, were you done? Okay. So you can come over to the podium, please, and just state your name for the record.
These are correct.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me here today. As you're aware, my name is Michael Kaufman, and I represent Ms. Kokensbarger with respect to this appeal. At the outset, I would like to say that with respect to the area in question where there are no gutters, since 1976, when Mrs. Kokensbarger and her mother moved into the property, there were never any gutters other than what is depicted in, I believe, slide 22. And that's that real short area that's directly beneath the satellite dish that's off to the right-hand side. The area to the left of that with the brick fascia and the 4 windows that you see, there was never a gutter there. With respect to the rest of the building that's now painted the dark slate gray or dark slate blue, there were never any gutters on that property. The property is well over 100 years old. My client has resided there since 1976. I have a document here that I've labeled Exhibit 2 that is a series of photos, and I apologize for not being as technologically advanced as Mr. Snyder in the city with respect to having a computer to present this evidence. But I do have a photo that depicts the building approximately 100 years ago, and then on page 2 are a series of 3 other photos that show the property, and none of those photos have gutters on. The city code, as Mr. Hastings correctly pointed out, does say that gutters must be properly maintained. The city code also says that grass has to be mowed to a certain level. The city code doesn't require somebody to plant grass if they don't have it. Here, the building has never had gutters. So to come along today and to ask Mrs. Kokensbarger to install them after she's lived in there for well over 40 years creates a hardship for her. She's tried desperately over the years to maintain the building. I have an Exhibit 3 here that is a series of photographs from 2006 of the premises, and it shows workmen painting the building and performing repairs to the same. In 2010, Mrs. Kokensbarger spent $6,000 repairing the roof and putting the roof on the section of the building that's depicted in slide, I think that's 22, immediately above the brick fascia. She had a rubber roof installed at that time. If you look at the top edge of the fascia, where it meets the rubber roof, there's actually a metal band that holds that down that would extend the gutters out away from the building if they were installed on there. Exhibit 4 is a copy of the repair bills where she spent $6,000 in 2010 to repair that roof.
One question, so when she repaired the roof in 2010, and I'm just throwing it out there, wasn't there a ordinance for that to have the gutters that we're now talking about?
Prior to the spring of 2024, Mrs. Kokensbarger had never been approached by anybody from the city with any respect to installing gutters on this property. The only gutter that was ever there is the one that's still there. She certainly didn't take any gutters down. The gutter that's there actually creates a safety hazard because it drains directly onto the sidewalk. Because of the proximity of the building on the sidewalk in Ogon Street, the building comes directly down to the foundation at the sidewalk, and then the downspout from the gutter deposits the water directly onto the sidewalk. Now, with respect to the east side of the building that I believe is depicted in slide 23. Mr. Snyder, am I able to back this up?
I mean, I know, sorry.
I just didn't want to touch your computer.
I know, this ain't mine, so we'll go back here to the original photos. Are you?
I think it was 23. Yeah, right there. So I believe it was Ms. Maxuga that asked and inquired the distance between the building and the fence. It's less than 18 inches between the edge of the building and the fence. So even if gutters were installed on that eastern exposure of the property, it would only dump the water 18 inches. And the fence in question is directly on the property line, as is the entire east side of the building that's south of the tree, if you will. Mrs. Kokensbarger doesn't maintain any property any lawn to the east of hers. There is a small strip there between the fence and her house, but it's very narrow. And she can share a little bit more with you guys with respect to that. After Mrs. Kokensbarger received the notice of violation from the city, she took it upon herself and did everything in her power to make extensive repairs to the property. I'm holding here a document that I've marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 6. And this is an estimate for $16,676 to make the repairs that she has made to her property. That money was spent, that was all spent as a direct result of the violation that she received from the city of Sandusky, and she's trying really hard to be a good steward to the city. I'm holding here what's been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit number 7, and this is a current photo that's real similar to those that have been produced by the city. Again, it's a series of photos that depict the current condition of the property. If you look at page 3 of Exhibit 7, it shows how that downspout in question dumps out directly onto the sidewalk on the, I'm going to call that the west side of the building. The first page of that document shows the east side of the property, and Keep in mind, the building is located directly on the property line. Mrs. Kokensbarger does not own any real estate to the east of her building. So I'm going to pass that around as well. Thank you. Mrs. Kokensbarger is not a lady of great financial resources. She earns less than $35,000 a year. She had a very significant medical issue in the fall of this year where she was hospitalized in excess of a week. Got medical bills outstanding that exceed $6,000. She took out a loan to borrow the almost $17,000 that she dumped into the property to try to bring it up to code and comply with the violation that she'd received. Her monthly expenses are in excess of $2,000 a month. She literally has nothing left over to pay for any more expenses on this property. Finally, I do want to speak to the issue of the affidavit of Ms. Homan. Now, it's interesting that this is the document that's been produced by the city of Sandusky, and yet they take issue with one of the specific findings that's in there. It's been presented to this board to support the proposition that the property in issue sits on expansive soils. The term expansive soils isn't even present in this affidavit. I think when this board considers the totality of the body of evidence involved in this situation, that it would be fair and reasonable for them to grant Mrs. Kokensbarger's appeal and to issue a finding that it is not necessary for her to install gutters on the property. I would like to have Mrs. Kokensbarger speak briefly to the board, if that's at all possible. She is a little bit disabled, and I don't believe she's able to stand long enough.
She can sit there.
Okay.
They'll set her up so she can speak.
Thank you.
Before she goes, does anybody have any questions of me specifically with respect to what I've presented here today?
If I may, concerning the sidewalk issue in regards to the gutters on the west side of the residence on Ogon Street, it's not really a concern there. It'd be no different than if you had roof drainage coming down your downspout, usually drains into your driveway. You usually have a negative degree of flow on your driveway, pushes that water down to the street and out into a storm drainage area. So as far as that being an issue going across the sidewalk. And then in paragraph 4 of the soil sample, the last line, and I know that Mr. Kaufman is indicating that there's nowhere in this report that indicates expansive, all right? However, it does indicate shrink and swell potential. So I don't know, it's kind of semantics. So as far as the definition of one word over the other, so.
I have one question. So Mr. Tom hasn't been reached, our building code? Or,
No.
no?
Mr. Tom is according to the building, or the Ohio Residential Code, Mr. Tom is the only one that can basically say, there's no need for gutters here.
But
So-
nothing from him?
I directed Mr. Kaufman. Like I said, we had discussed issues along the line and about where this may go, where it may not go. And I told him, reach out to Mr. Tom and have a conversation. If he would come over and if he makes a determination for that, then that's his decision. That would be something the board would have to take into consideration then, so.
And Mr. Kaufman, did you do that suggestion? Did you contact Mr. Tom?
I did not have a conversation with Mr. Tom, ma'am.
Okay. And then my other question, I know this process started back in 2024. So I was just, I guess, and no disrespect to Ms. Kokensbarger, I'm just trying to figure out if it started in 2024, and I know you said she has some issues now in 2025. So
Yeah, so her issues, ma'am, they were in October of 2024. She immediately, after she received the first citation, she immediately contacted a contractor, made financial arrangements to secure the loan, to pay for the $17,000 improvements that she did to the premises. Simultaneously, as she was doing that, I filed the appeal with respect to the issue of the gutters because, again, this property never had any gutters. Even if the gutters were installed on the Ogon side of the street, they're still gonna, you can't run a downspout across the sidewalk. The downspout's gonna come down right at the edge of her property like it does in, I believe it was.
Well, no, and I understand that. I'm just trying to just understand at this point. I mean, because the first compliance, when they reached out, was March of 2024. And I know that you're saying, and I mean, you of all people, no disrespect, but we know that sometimes rules change. So, and I mean, maybe in 1996 or 2000, gutters were not an issue with the housing authority, but we're kind of in a new era, new light, and I know different things do change, so I'm just putting it out there, so.
Understandable, ma'am, I certainly understand that. I do think that the testimony of Mr. Snyder himself was that at the time that he issued this citation, he wasn't thinking about expansive soils. That was something that, after we filed our appeal, he brought to Mr. Hastings' attention, and Mr. Hastings, I believe his testimony was the first thing Mr. Hastings said was, are there expansive soils involved? And Mr. Snyder said that he's not a geologist, he doesn't know anything about expansive soils. So at the time that the citation was issued, this wasn't about expansive soils. This was about the fact that he drove by and he didn't see any gutters on it. And again, our code doesn't say that you need gutters. It says gutters must be properly maintained.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions before I have her speak? So if you state your name for the record, please.
Deborah Kokensberger.
Okay. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
Well, I've gone in over my head to do everything you all want me to do. I had health issues the whole year of 2024. I'm, like Mr. Kaufman said, I'm over my head. I cannot get money anywhere else. I was sick for the whole year, and I finally had to go to the hospital. I was retaining fluid. I couldn't go to work, couldn't drive my car, couldn't go up steps at work. Got to the hospital, I was retaining fluid, had congestive heart failure, and I had to stay in the hospital for a week. Doctor would not release me. I was out of work for a month. I missed numerous days for work because I was ill. There is nowhere I can get any more money to put gutters on the house, number one. Number two, it's gonna run across the sidewalk. There's nowhere, I'm right on the sidewalk, I'm the front and the back and the side. There's nowhere to run the water but across the sidewalk. And with the snow we've had, I just get a layer of ice. And it's not safe for me to walk on or anybody else to walk on.
Debbie, on the east side of your property,
Right,
between the house and the fence, how much distance is there between the edge of your
my
house
house
and
and
the
the
property
fence,
line?
there's maybe about that much distance, but the edge of the utility room and the fencing is right there. There's a little itty bitty backyard, but any water going back there is gonna go into my foundation.
Is there 5 feet between?
There's nothing, I'm right on the
Let me change the
sidewalk.
slide there on 23. In the previous slide, I believe it was 23, is there 5 feet of distance between your house and the fence on that east edge of your property?
In the backyard, I have no idea how much is back there. Not much. And it's L-shaped, so it would hit, what would jump back there will hit my foundation on the side and the back of the house, and possibly go to the house next door, too.
How about the portion of your building, and I'm going to call it the southeast corner
Okay.
that fronts First Street? How much property is between your building and the neighbor's property at that point?
Nothing. I'm right on the borderline.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay,
May I ask a question?
yes,
What's the distance between, off of Ogon Street? So it would be the north side of the residence to 632 or 622 Ogons. What would be the distance between those two structures?
Not much neither.
Well, it looks like quite a bit on the photo up there. To where if,
A little alcove area, that's all concrete
okay,
to get to the steps and to get to the back
Where-
of my house.
where does your property stop between those two houses right there? Between 622 and your property?
622 is mine, too.
That's yours as well.
Yes.
So that would still be your property, correct?
Yes.
So if we ran a gutter down that, off of that east side and routed the downspout across the north side of that structure and pushed it over out toward
All those
Ogons.
gutters on 622 Ogon Street run to the sidewalk.
Not 622, hon, I'm referring to 1101.
1101, there's
So we
no
have,
gutters.
We have the sloped roof that I'm looking at right there would be, so the roof runoff would go toward the east. The gutter would be on the east side. The downspout could run across the front or across the north side there at an angle, and it would bring it out toward Ogons.
Onto the sidewalk.
Again,
That little piece is on the sidewalk,
okay,
which I know we're not supposed to do that, but what are you supposed to do? I'm surrounded by concrete.
can I ask another question?
Sure.
When you got your notification, why didn't you give me a call?
Beg pardon?
Why didn't you give me a call? Why didn't you call me?
Because I just went and got the work done. I knew I had to get the work done, so I got the work done.
And what I'm going to give Mike here, this is for the 2025 beautification grant.
Okay,
Monies that can be afforded to, it's a payback type grant. Money has to be paid up front if it's authorized. That's an option. That would have been an
Okay.
option if you would have given me a call back when I initially wrote the property. But we'll have funds here coming up shortly. Debbie Eversole would be the one to contact for that, so. Thank you, sir.
I have one more comment, if that's okay. Is that-
that's fine, because
Okay.
we get ready to make a decision here.
Okay.
So, what's going on?
I can't vote, but my last comment would be without Scott Tom having a say in whether this could, I would say that denying this appeal wouldn't make any sense without his input.
Well, I need to get a motion on where we're proceeding at this point.
I'd like to make a motion to delay a decision on the appeal until after we have a chance to, you, Mr. Kaufman or ma'am, contact Mr. Tom. This seems to be an engineering decision here. This board, I believe, is making a decision on appeal or non-appeal. I think we need the input from the engineer before we can make a decision on appeal or non-appeal.
She also should contact Debbie for the funds that were specifically set aside for this board and the decisions
Absolutely.
that the board
Absolutely.
makes, so.
On behalf of Ms.
It's aside from the beautification program.
I would say I'd be more than happy to reach out to Mr. Tom and have a conversation with him. A, B, she will most definitely take advantage of this opportunity and make applications for the grant funds.
I have a question.
Did you make a motion?
You make a motion, I'm waiting.
I'll
for a
second his motion, second his motion so we can have discussion.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
been,
Madam Chairman,
Oh,
may I
yes.
add something to the motion?
yes, sir.
For Mr. Tom to make a good engineering decision, I'd like it contingent upon his being allowed access to the property so he can actually measure the distances that we've been talking about.
So ordered. So it's It's been, we have a
Second.
motion out there, so it's been second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed?
Madam Chairperson Gamblin,
Yes.
Mr. Sharai,
Yes.
Ms. Warner,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay.
And
But, so,
Oh, I had a question on the beautification grant stuff that might be helpful. I just wanted to, I don't know, she can't apply for the beautification funds for the work that she's already
Done.
completed, the 16,000? Okay. Yeah,
no, but again, she just have to,
yeah, yeah.
Then
she could
exactly.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be here today, so I make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved and second, all in favor?